the new 1953 Studebaker, the new American car with the European look. America expects the newest from Studebaker, and Studebaker again more than lives up to everyone's expectations.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Richard's Toy Room. Well, here's the next plastic model kit that we're going to be reviewing and building. Now this one is one I wanted for quite some time. It's one of the kits that I got this past Christmas in 2018. This is the 1953 Studebaker, and you know, I forget what model it actually is. I think it's might be like the Commander or something like that. Anyway, besides that point, this is the latest, at least when I was doing the video, this is the latest release of this kit as far as I know. I think it may be out of production now, but it'll be back. It always comes back. I believe the first iteration of this kit was probably in the early to mid 60s, and it is an AMT kit. As you can see, it's a 3-in-1. You can build it stock, custom, or Bonneville Racing. Of course, I build it stock. It's a 1/25th scale kit, and if you hold it right here, it's the Retro Deluxe Edition Enhanced Reissue. It has 2 sets of windshields in it. You get clear and blue, and it also has the currently popular pad printed tire, so you don't have to try to highlight any white letters or white walls or anything along that line. And this says original wheels restored. Not exactly sure what that means, but if you wanted to build it as a custom, this is what it would look like. Well, you can do whatever you want with it, but here's some of the options that you can put on it. Custom taillights, chopped top. It even gives you a small windshield to go with the chopped top. Grill bumpers, seats, you know, the usual stuff. This is what it looks like if you wanted to do it stock. I apologize for the light. I don't have really good lighting right where I'm sitting, and I'm sorry about that. The opposite end of the box is exactly the same, and then here's some more of the kits. Now they do give you a complete second engine, I believe, in this one, so if that's the case, I will be doing the optional hot rod engine. I'm starting to kind of collect those, not collect them, but whenever they're available with all the parts to build 2 separate engines, I build them and display them. And I'm going to, when I get this room done and I have a spot for all the kits that I've done over the past 40 something years, we'll put all the engines in one area together. So anyway, you probably could see down here that I kind of got ahead of myself. That's why I had to do this video. That's why I've got like this red paper under here instead of my usual green mat, which is kind of right off the side underneath this. But I'm working on the 1953 Ford Victoria at the moment, and I'm at a point where I'm waiting for the paint to cure so I can two-tone the rest of the body and finish doing the details on it. And I was about to do an update video on that. So I started, you can kind of get a little view into my mind here. I've got these little plastic bags, and I start separating parts from the instruction sheet and putting them, I do the sub-assemblies, like here, up here you see all like engine, and this is all for the engine parts. They're all the same color. And then this is like the suspension parts over here, and that's the oil filter for the engine. And they're all the same color, so they would go into, like, see, this bag says gloss black. I've already got some parts in there. You've got like the air filter, the battery, the belt, and the fan. And then silver I already started separating out. You've got the carburetor and the exhaust manifolds. So that's how I kind of have my system. I go through the instructions and I put all the sub-assemblies together so I can paint things that are the same color in one shot. Looks a lot neater that way too. And then when I get down to my painting area, all I got to do is pull out the bag, and I don't have to think, gee, what color was this, what color was that. I've already got it written on the bag, all these get silver. all these get gloss black, and it'll be, you know, flat black, green, whatever, and so on. So basically, that's kind of why some of these parts aren't on the tree, because I had just started doing the kit and I thought, oh darn it, I have to do a video on this for my channel. So let me get this out of the way. We'll look at the instructions. These are, I don't like the way these instructions, they're like this big long sheet. It's probably the way they came originally. It's kind of irritating, to me anyway. But you know, it's your kind of your typical old instructions. Starts out with the 2 different engines, and you go to your chassis, put your wheels and tires together. Now, speaking of tires, here's the tires. With they're Firestone tires with the printed white walls. They're black wall in the back, of course, and you got your 1 metal axle up here. And then you move on, of course, to the interior, and you can build, you know, racing stock custom. And I'm assuming that the flip side will be the stock interior first. No. Okay, well maybe, oh, okay. Stock or custom is on this part here. So, then you do your body. Again, gives you the option, stock, custom, or racing. Final assemblies, putting your blower scoops on and your bumpers and whatnot. And then it gives you things if you're going to do your custom bumpers and parts like that, and then stock finish up there. And then there's the header panel, 53 Studebaker. Actually, it says a 53 Studebaker Commander hardtop. So I think that's what I said at the beginning. I think I said Commander. So I was right. Anyway, next up, we'll look at some of the parts in the kit. Let's look at the chrome first. Really nice chrome set here. And I took it out of the bag so I could show it to you. But I'm going to put it back in the bag so that it doesn't get scratched up in the meantime while I'm working on it. But you've got your stock hubcaps, one floated over here, and then your custom wheels there, and then looks like mostly a lot of custom parts on there, but I mean, you got obviously your bumpers and things like that. Valve covers are chrome on this stock engine. Nice chrome on that. Here's your, you can see the thin, low profile, the chop top window. And then over here are your, give you a clear custom hood. There's another one in the box that's solid colored plastic, and here's your stock windows. Those I don't want to take out yet because they'll get scratched. And then the same thing here in blue, but they don't give you stock windows in blue, just custom. And then here's your tail lights. And let's get the white parts out, or what's left of the ones I didn't take off the sprues already. Oh, you know what? I was incorrect. I'm sorry. There is not a custom solid color hood, just the clearer blue. Anyway, on the white parts, these are all the white parts except for the body and the chassis pan. So here you've got your chop top roof here. I think these are mostly custom parts here. Your seat. That may be the stock seat. And there's your stock front seat, custom buckets, a lot of flash on here, some exhaust parts, and I think these are for the headers. I'm not sure what some of these other parts are. That looks like a hose. And you got some body parts. Don't know what those are offhand. There's some shocks and suspension parts here, your steering column. Obviously headers. This looks like all the custom engine parts here. A racing seat, radiator. There's your dashboard. And last tree, we've got, looks like some wheel parts, some roll cage for the racing car, and your stock hood. And finally, for plastic, oh, there's 3 parts of this. You got the interior tub. Got some decent detail on the door panels. And your frame seems to be pretty straight. I mean, not like crazy detail under there, but maybe there's a bunch of parts that attach to make up for that. Gas tank molded in. And the body, which is real nice. Got your inner wheel wells molded in, your firewall molded in. Got your emblem here on the side and on the trunk. Some nice little tiny fins up here. Pretty decent. And also in this particular kit, there's a couple other things in the box. Decals. Probably won't use too many of these. Let me open these up for you. This is what else is in the box. You got a catalog with some die-cast stuff and looks like some model kits. Slot cars. Of course, who knows how much of this stuff is current. This, oh god, it says 2015. I didn't realize this kit was that old. I thought this was a current one, but maybe it was out for a couple years, because I think this is still the current, the most current release of this kit. I could be wrong. And you got something to join the Round 2 Models Club or something along that line. Join our mailing list. Welcome to the 70s. And these little reproduction tiny boxes of the full-size box. I don't use those. And finally, last thing is your decals, which again, I don't really use too many of those either. Just opening them up to show you. Only thing I usually use are license plates, of which I don't even see any on here. I won't use any of these. So they'll go back in the, they'll go in the box. So basically that's your kit, and next up will probably be a interim update and progress report on how well this kit's going together and how much I enjoy it. Or not. Okay, update on the 53 Studebaker. This is not the final paint job, although it's the final paint job for this paint job. This was going to be a dark blue on the top, and this is actually the same paint I used on the El Camino, but I used a different color primer to make it hopefully a different shade. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I painted the hood and the body at the same time, and as you see, the hood actually came out pretty decent. It came out glossy and shiny, and I actually went over this with some polish because the body came out so terrible. I don't know if you can see this, but it's like, maybe I can zoom in. There we go. I think there we go. You see how terrible that like orange peely effect is on this? It's just terrible over the whole thing. I tried going over it with the same polish, and I mean, I had a little success on the parts that weren't as bad, but like over here, it just will not shine up, and I'm just not happy with it. And I don't want to give it a clear coat because I don't want to take any more of the detail away, especially like back here where it's a Studebaker. I mean, there's probably like 3-4 coats of paint on that already with the primer and everything, and I won't be able to detail it up as much. So unfortunately, I'm going to go back to the drawing board with this, and she's going to go for a dip in the purple tank. I'll put it upside down. So no turning back now. Here goes the hood. Alright. We'll let that sit for a day or so, and we'll start again. Super quick update on the Studebaker. As you saw in the previous segment, she went back in the purple dunk tank. I sanded it down after that and primed it again. Looked good, so I took a chance and used the same paint again, and it came out 10 times better. I mean, it's not perfect, but I might try giving it a little bit of polish after all is said and done. I'm not sure. Or maybe I'll give a shot with that Pledge future floor polish stuff. See what happens. I've never actually done that on a whole model kit before. I've done it in little bits and pieces, but a lot of people swear by it. So anyhow, I gotta let this cure and dry before I can touch it, or it's gonna leave fingerprints and stuff in it. So it's gonna be a few days before I can get back to work on this. And in the meantime, I've already started on the next kit, which is going to be the 1962 Thunderbird Sports Roadster. And I'm very optimistic on this one because so far, I haven't painted the body yet, but so far everything I've painted and touched has come out really nice. So I'm hoping that's going to end up being a nice one. So stay tuned. Okay everyone, well now it's time to go over the paints that I used on the Studebaker kit. The only can I don't have here to show you is a can of Testors, you know, these, or Model Master, whatever the hell it is. To me they're both the same kind of paint. I used a racing orange, which I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby. It's the only reason I bought it, because I have used the paint before and I don't like it. It comes out really thick and it comes out like a really dull color. And then I went over it with this Testors gloss, lacquer gloss, to shine it up a little bit. What I used it on was the spare engine that came with the Studebaker. They give you a whole nother complete engine to build. It's for the racing or whatever you want to call it. It's got blowers on it and everything. So that's the only can of paint here I don't have. So I did use this bomber green again that we used on the last kit. I used this on the engine for the Studebaker, and I did go over that because that's a dull paint. I went over that with some clear coat, and that's what I used for that part. On the interior I used this country blue paint. It's Krylon. I've had this for a long time. I mean, I probably had this paint almost 20 years, but it still works perfect, and it's a nice satin, so that's one of my favorite types of paint to use on interiors for automobiles when you want to do it like a cloth, because then it's not real shiny. And I also used, I believe, I may not have it here, I thought I used some gray primer on that, and I just left it gray to make it a two-tone interior. For some reason I don't have the primer here, because I think what I did was when I painted the car the first time I used the gray primer, if I'm not mistaken, and I had to dunk it in the pit there to clean it out, and I decided to go over it the second time with the white primer, and it worked really good, as you saw in the update. What else I used was on the silver, like exhaust and stuff, I use this here. It's hard to read. It's a Color Place. I think it's from Walmart. It's just silver. And on the chassis, I believe I used this flat black, this old flat black I've had. And I also used this Krylon gloss black. And I also used this Rust-Oleum semi-gloss black. I try to tend to do some different different textures of black for different parts of the chassis and suspension and things like that under the hood, so it doesn't all have the same tone, and you know, some parts are painted glossy, some parts are not, so I wanted to look more realistic that way. And finally, again, I used the Rust-Oleum, what's this called? It's called Gloss Spa Blue, and that's the main color that I painted the body. So I will probably do one more update on this before I show you the finished car, and stay tuned for that. Before we go to the final reveal, there is one other thing that I wanted to bring up. The engine that this kit came with, well, let me rephrase that. This kit came with 2 complete engines, and they give you enough parts that you can build both engines and you can use one for display. The problem is they don't give you a display stand with this, and there was a couple other ones that I did recently that I also didn't get a display stand with. So I thought, well, maybe I can make one. So all I did was I just took, you know, pieces of sprue, you know, like this, that were basically you're going to throw out, and I cut a corner off of one, this round part here, and then I glued a straight piece to that, and then I took a T-section off of one of the sprues, and I glued that to that. And then for the front part of the engine, I just took a little part with a nub on it. This had a little nub on it also coming up from the top, or from the on this pole. So here and here it had little risers. They were probably how the sprue got shoved out of the mold. And I just took another piece here and I cut it and glued it, and I used this stuff here like I've showed before, this bonding. It works really good on styrene. And then I just drilled a tiny little hole in the tip of it there, because on this engine it has a pin. So all I do is put the pin in here, set the engine on here. I'm going to glue it in and I'm going to paint it. That's what I just wanted to show it to you. So now I have a perfectly good display stand for this engine, and I'm going to make some for the other ones that don't have display stands. It's pretty easy. And then I'll have all the engines displayed with the cars. I'll just put them I might put them either next to the car that they came with, or I'll just put them all together. I haven't decided on that part yet. But anyway, I thought it was pretty neat and pretty simple, and you can try it yourself. And stay tuned for the reveal. Well, here we go. The final reveal. Now, I'll zoom in a little bit, but I just wanted to go over a few things before I show you all around the car here. The problems that I have with this kit, I'm not sure. It must be because of the age of the kit. I'm sure this was something that was out in the early 60s. But from the sprues, the way that the parts attached to the sprues, there were kind of little bumps, for lack of a better word, that extended into the parts, and it needed a lot of like trimming, and sometimes it extended so far into the parts that it deformed them in a way where it was kind of hard to get them back to normal. Nothing like horrible, but irritating. There's a lot of more modern kits, and even kits from like when I was a kid in the 70s are not like that. So I don't know, maybe they need to work on the molds for that, but I doubt if they'll do anything. Second thing was related to that also, and this also this also applies to the 62 Thunderbird. That is the next kit I'm in the process of working on, except that one is like 10 times worse. The push marks, I think that's what they're called, where there's like these little round spots, like usually it's on the bottom or the underside, like the underside of the hood or inside the body, where you usually don't see them. I think they call them push marks, and they're like little leftover pieces of plastic, and they're always a circle shapes, different sizes. Sometimes they're just like a spot where they're like not really like a hunk of plastic, but on these ones they're like actually like, you know, maybe like a millimeter of plastic sticking up from the surface, and a lot of times that had to be trimmed off because the parts wouldn't fit together right, because a lot of parts had to touch in those areas, and that was a big problem on this and the Thunderbird. So that involved a lot of sanding and scraping and cutting, and not fun. You know, stuff that you prefer not to have to do when you're doing a kit. I mean, it's just like busy work. The next part, this involves the actual kit itself. This involves the actual construction of the kit. The engine mounts did not fit properly. It actually gave you separate engine mounts that you had to glue to the frame, and then the engine would fit on those. Well, if you put them in the way that were the spots where it chose to put them, the engine didn't fit in there right. And I had to keep fiddling with them and adjusting them, so like the engine would clear. I think if I remember right, it was sitting too low, and I had to like keep bringing them up because it was like hitting the suspension and the steering parts and stuff. So that was not fun. Luckily, it didn't have to go up far enough where it affected the closing of the hood. Let's see. Next thing was speaking of the steering. This has, you can probably see it from here if I show you, steerable wheels, which is kind of neat, but they don't want to go that way too well. It's actually a pretty cool setup. I don't think I've ever quite seen one exactly the way this one is, but it just doesn't work that well in the way that they've engineered it, and it like hits parts, and as you can see, you know, I could turn it easily one way but not the other way, but still it's a nice little feature. I just wish they would have engineered it a little better. Let's see, next thing, the upper radiator hose on this, it did not fit where it's supposed to in the radiator. They give you a radiator and a hole for the upper hose where the little peg for the hose is supposed to glue to, and then a shroud with a little kind of a divot in it where the hose kind of like would normally like lay in and then go into the top of the radiator. Well, once you put that all together, that doesn't line up with where the radiator hose goes. I had to kind of just stick it on the side of the radiator there, so it just kind of looked like it was connected. Again, not a big deal, just poor design. Or maybe they changed something in the kit from when the first came out. Maybe it actually worked at one time. Maybe that shroud wasn't there. I don't know. Either way, I'm bringing it up because it was an issue. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I will show you in detail when we actually get down closer to the kit, but the taillight lenses, they give you red taillight lenses. Now, I'm not talking about the custom lenses, because they also give you custom lenses in this, because you can build this like a bunch of different ways. 3 in 1 according to them, but you know what I mean. They give you stock taillight lenses, but the taillight bezels actually have the lenses molded in, like a, you know, older kit where you kind of paint them red, which I didn't have a big problem with. But oh, you know, actually, before I go there, this is another thing, but it reminded me when I was telling you about the taillight lenses. The instructions on this are horrid. They don't tell you what order to do things. Everything's in like text. You should be able to put a model kit together without having to read the text, which a lot of kits don't even have text anymore. It's like they're all like kind of Well, I'm probably complaining about something that I would normally complain the other way about, but the text is so vague that it doesn't help you build the kit, and it doesn't really, they put things in the text that you wouldn't know to look for if you're just like, say, looking at the pictures and going, okay, well, I got to put the bumper on, I got to put the hubcaps on, whatever. And usually, you know, if you build enough kits, you kind of can figure it out. But on this one, I already had glued these lenses on. I was like, they look funny. They stick out too far. It's like you'd think they should go in farther and be flush with the bezel, but then I read in the text, it says, if you're going to use the red plastic supplied lenses, you'll have to modify the taillight bezel for them to fit. So basically they want you to cut out what they've already molded in there so you can fit these lenses in. But I wasn't going to take them off and do all that. And they actually don't look that bad. But again, another problem with the way that the kit was designed. Let's see. Two more things. I already mentioned one of them, that they didn't give you a stand for this spare engine. And you saw earlier where I had constructed my own. I thought it came out pretty good. And the last thing was putting the body to the frame. It didn't quite want to fit together right. And I had to move the rear bumper actually up because where it's supposed to mount, it has little pins. It kind of sits in the chassis pan. But I couldn't get the chassis pan up any farther into the body, and I don't know why. I mean, I trimmed all those little, you know, push marks and everything where the interior tub is supposed to glue in, and I pushed down and squeezed, and it just won't go any farther. So I ended up having to, I mean, it fits fine, and I glued it on. It's not like an issue. You can't really tell even looking at it, but still, it was something wrong there that didn't quite work the way they intended it to. But besides that, I love the kit. I've always actually wanted this one ever since the first time I ever saw it, and I'm glad I finally got it. I think it's going to look great on the shelf with the other kits when I finally get all my models out. I had intended to make this a two-tone. I think I mentioned that earlier, and I decided to just go with the monotone. I think it came out pretty good. So let's zoom in and we'll give you a little better look at this. So I hope that's good enough. Here, you can take a look at the spare engine first if you want. It's kind of neat. May have to re-glue that on there. It looks a little crooked to me. It's not a big deal. I'll just put a drop of glue on each part of the stand. Yeah, I think it's a little crooked. I'll fix that later. Anyway, here's the kit. I mean the model. Nice thing about this is they gave you this hood. It's got a unique hinge. I've never seen one quite like this before. And the weird part, it was included in the clear parts for some reason. And the other hinge was clear, or the other hood was clear too, so maybe that's why. But it goes down there under the cowl. And they also gave you this, if I can get it out of here, I dropped it in here. You know what, I'm going to tip it over and do it. Well, that'll give me a chance to show you the underside. Here's the underside of the car. But the hood will stay open, but they also gave you this kind of little hood prop that you can put in here. There we go. So there's your hood prop there to hold the hood open. And it closes real nice. See the car there. Here's the rear. Let me give you a look at these taillight lenses, see if you can see what I'm talking about. See how they kind of stick out?
Here's the exciting new 1953 Studebaker, the first American car with a real foreign car flair. See the European influence? This car has long, low, distinctive continental styling. And the minute you feel its surging response when you're behind the wheel, you'll recognize true blue American power, performance, luxury, and riding comfort. This dramatic new Studebaker 453 is the most daring advancement of our time in automobile design.
Let me see if I can get the camera even closer, maybe give you a peek on the inside. I don't remember if I actually showed that before. You can kind of get an idea what it looks like in there. A little armrest in the back. But yeah, good kit. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
Sensationally different in every way. Truly a new flight into the future. America's new dream car. See it, drive it. The new 1953 Studebaker.